Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning. Welcome to Racing Across America on a big day of racing at the various venues we will be covering on this Saturday, highlighted by a couple of important steps on the Derby Trail, the Fountain of Youth down at Gulfstream, the Southwest at Oaklawn, the delayed Southwest at Oaklawn. That brings back last year's two-year-old champion in Essential Quality at Oaklawn. Greatest Honor, the horse that's going to attract some attention at Gulfstream. But that Fountain of Youth also has Drain the Clock, stepping out of the sprint ranks, Fire at Will, who won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. It's a fun afternoon for a fun weekend. Tomorrow at Oaklawn, Monomoy Girl returns. So it's a lot of fun these couple of days, and plenty of stakes action at those tracks. And stakes really at the other tracks, they're intriguing as well. But this morning on the show, we'll concentrate a little Oaklawn and Gulfstream. Coming up a little bit later on in the show, we'll be joined by Jeremy Plonk, horseplayernow.com and Countdown to the Crown. Always like to plug Jeremy in every few weeks to talk a little bit about the progress made along the Derby Trail, some of his thoughts on the contenders, and specifically today, obviously, his thoughts on both the Southwest and the Fountain of Youth. That's a little bit later on in the show. Also, Ron Nicoletti from Gulfstream Park will join us, taking a look at some of the stakes action down at Gulfstream this afternoon, including, obviously, the Fountain of Youth. And Saffie Joseph, who has Drained the Clock. We talked to Saffie, taped interviews. All of our interviews were taped yesterday, Friday, in prep for today, so we could make sure we get everybody plugged in. But we talked with Saffie yesterday about Drain the Clock. Again, stepping out of a really very, very nice sprint resume so far. It's going to be interesting to see what he does going the two turns on this Saturday afternoon. But Saffie also has in some stake runners on the undercard, and he also had some maiden runners. One of those over at Oaklawn, and I always like to get thoughts on the maiden runners, so we talked about those as well with Saffie. We'll get to all that in just a moment. Before we do that, I want to thank our friends at Gulfstream for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. So thanks again to Gulfstream Park for their support. And let me just hit you a couple of promos of note right here at the Clubhouse Racebook today on Saturday. It's the Play the Board Handicapping Contest. Fairly new, a lot of fun. Handicapping contests are always fun. You have to think a little bit about how you find some value and where you go and how you want to play. And I think handicapping contests improve your handicapping, because I think you have to think out of the box a little bit, and sometimes that just freshens you up. So come on down, try the Play the Board Handicapping Contest this Saturday afternoon here at the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany, and that is the same location where you can stop tomorrow for Prize Wheel Sunday. Come in on Sunday, put your name in the bin, and folks will get randomly selected throughout the afternoon to spin the prize wheel. There are vouchers, there's merchandise available. Always a lot of fun. Prize Wheel Sunday, Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. All right, as promised, our lineup towards the end of the show, Jeremy Plonk, our middle guest, Ron Nicoletti, but we're going to kick things off now with the trainer for the very intriguing entrant in the Fountain of Youth, Drain the Clock. Up next, Saffie Joseph. Happy to be joined now by Saffie Joseph. He has Drain the Clock in the Fountain of Youth on Saturday afternoon. A couple other stakes runners on the undercard as well. Saffie, good morning.
Good morning, Seth. Thanks for having me on.
Happy to have you on, and we'll kick right in talking about Drain the Clock, because he's an interesting entrant into the Fountain of Youth, stepping out of some sprint races. Before we talk specifically about Saturday afternoon, just looking at the record of Drain the Clock, 4 for 5, but he's essentially undefeated in that the one loss, the horse lost the jockey. So other than that race, 4 for 4, including the Limehouse and the Swale. I'm just curious, horses like this, did he tout himself as something special the first time he came into your barn?
Yeah, he showed ability. I would say from about his second breeze. Watching him gallop early on, you couldn't really tell, but once we set him down in the second breeze, let him set down a little bit for April. So he showed he had ability. Until they do it, you never really know. So his debut was what we expected. I'm really happy to see it carry over from the morning to the afternoon.
Yeah, he has certainly been impressive. We're going to take a look at the stretch run of the Swale, which was his last race, January 30th. He'll be the number 5 horse here, wins by a chart margin of over 6 lengths. And give me your thought process coming out of this. Again, it was a 7-furlong race. He's been all sprint at this point. What was his thought process coming out of this leading into the Fountain of Youth? And did you know you were going to go to the Fountain of Youth, or were there options? And how did you make the decision to run on Saturday afternoon?
I mean, no, the Swale, before the Swale, we were coming out of Limehouse. He won the Limehouse, and the Swale was a gradual increase in distance to 7/8, and we weren't thinking Fountain of Youth before that, but the way he won it, we decided that we're going to give him a chance and wanted to perhaps whether it be the Fountain of Youth or the Gotham. We decided after talking over that we're aiming to the Fountain of Youth, so it's at his home track. I mean, he's in good order, and we'll take him on. We think he has the class as much as any of them in the race. The distance will be a question mark, and until he does it, you won't feel confident until you see it happen.
He is stretching the 2 turns on Saturday, obviously at the mile and a 16. Do you train any differently prepping for that 2 turns?
No, I mean, if you watch his last 2 races, he's probably only worked once in between them. This time he's worked twice, but as far as basically, we've kept the same routine, and if he's going to get the distance, we can't. We'll get it. There's nothing we can do to make him get it. His dam side is a lot of stamina deep down. There's some horses that run in the Epsom Derby on the dam side, so there's plenty of stamina on the dam side. I feel that he will get the distance, but as I said, he's always reserved until you see it happen first.
I got the 1 post position. What's the game plan going to be pace-wise?
In pace-wise, he normally breaks well. Hopefully, he breaks well, and he can make the lead. If someone wants to go, he's very available. He can sit second, but he's just a naturally fast over. Most of the time, he's going to be in a forward position, and hopefully, again, that will be the game plan.
And I know you said until they get out there and try it, you just never know, but what are your expectations for Saturday?
We're coming in optimistic and confident. He's had a good campaign coming into the race. He's trained well, he looks well, his appetite is strong. I mean, everything's gone so far as good as it can hope. You know, we just have to hope on the race day that everything goes as good as it's been going.
And again, he's been phenomenal so far, so we wish him a lot of luck with Drain the Luck on Saturday. He's really an interesting entrant into the Fountain of Youth. Got a couple other runners on the undercard. Let's hit on those, and we'll start out in the very one with Lovely Lovey. We're going to watch her last race where she was really close up 4th in the Sunshine Philly and Mayor Turf. She's going to be the number 7 horse here. And what was a ding-dong blanket finish? Number 9, Bienville Street wins. 8, Mo of the West second. 4, Sun Summers third. But as I say, Lovely Lovey, the 7 horse, is right in the scrum here. You can see coming on the outside, just comes up a little bit short. What are your expectations Saturday afternoon for Lovely Lovey?
Well, it's just mainly trying the 9.5 furlongs, mile 316, just hoping that will help her. She's kind of a filly that comes from off of it. The last race, she doesn't really have a quick acceleration, and she's more steady. As far as confidence, I don't think there's a lot of confidence. It's just hoping that the distance will help her improve a bit and experimenting.
Yeah, and she was making a nice closing effort last time in a mile and 1/16, gets the extra 1/8 of a mile on Saturday afternoon, so she'll be interesting to see with Paco. Maybe a little more room in the stretch, see if she's coming down the lane. A little bit earlier in the Canadian Turf, you have a horse that's first time in your barn, Monarch's Glen. I pulled up a replay from Gulfstream Park West, November 25th. This is 2 starts back for Monarch's Glen, the number 4 horse here. A winner in that race, as I say, subsequently came back to Gulfstream and ran 3rd, claimed out of that race. Now you've had her in your barn for a while. I'm curious, was the claim on January 13th made with this race in mind, or was it a decision after the horse came to your barn?
The claim was made basically, he had beaten me at the Gulfstream Park West, and he's obviously a horse with a lot of backclass. old Judgment Homebird. It was made to, we're going to run him in the Sandy Lane Gold Cup first. That was the main reason for claiming him. I mean, with a prep in between. And the Sandy Lane Gold Cup has been pushed back due to COVID, so this race fell into the radar where we think he's competitive in numbers. Ability, I think he's just, what's been his main issue is he hasn't got the right trip. If you watch a lot of his races, he's always wide, because he can get a bit keen in his races. I think he's a trip away from winning one of these races. Hopefully Saturday gets the trip, and if he gets the right trip, he can most definitely win.
Yeah, he's fun, certainly, and I think, as you say, fits on the numbers, so Monarchs Glen becomes a player in that Canadian turf. I just wanted to go back and hit on a couple of runners that you had run very well over the past couple of weeks and get maybe game plans going forward for them. Going back to last week in the Royal Delta, Queen Nekia, we're going to take a look at the replay. She's going to be the number 5 horse here at 29-1. Nice win in the Royal Delta down at Gulfstream last week. Did you have more confidence than the betting look at the 29-1, because she looks pretty good? She wins off by a chart margin of just under a couple of lengths. Nice ride by Corey Lannery to sneak up the rail there with Queen Nekia last week.
Yeah, I would say we were quietly optimistic. She and the other horse, we had 2 horses in that race, Gibbush, they both came out of a mistake at Delta Town. Gibbush had won that day, Queen Nekia was 4th. And then we gave them a break and specifically pointed to the Royal Delta. And their works were as good as you could get going into a race. It was a steady series of works. They were both at their best. It was it was just going to be if they were good enough. So we thought they were going into the race well, and to see it happen, we're very thankful for that.
Yeah, the bullet work kind of touted her, and as I say, it was a really nice ride from Corey Lannery to get up. Any plans for her, or you just feeling things out?
Yeah, nothing at the moment. I mean, she was third in that same race last year. She had already won a stake, so to get that graded stake under her belt was very important. Nothing has picked out yet. We'll probably give her like 6-7 weeks before we go somewhere else.
And I also wanted to go back a couple weeks. Gulfstream Park Sprint. We'll watch Mischievous Alex, the number 5 horse, win here. Looks pretty good in that event. That was coming off a win in the prior start. Since you've been taking care of this horse, Mischievous Alex, and again, this was a couple of weeks ago in the Gulfstream Park Sprint. Another nice win. What are your thoughts going forward for Mischievous Alex?
We're very talented colt, and we're very optimistic going forward that there's a lot more big races, and there's about hopefully to come. Ricardo looks like it's the main play right now. It's between them and the Dubai Sprint, but I would say Ricardo's probably the front runner at the moment.
Nice. As I say, that was a good-looking win last time. And just before we let you go, always like to get a little tout, if possible, on some of these maiden races. And you have a couple of interesting maidens coming up on Saturday at Gulfstream. In the 5th race, you have Collaborate coming out. It was a 5th place finish, but the buyer number 72, I think, fits pretty well with the bunch in the 5th race on Saturday. What are your thoughts on start number 2 for Collaborate?
I think he's going to run really big. Have a lot of expectations behind him. Disappointed that he got beat first time out, but I mean, you always have to look for the positive in every outcome, and thought that he got a lot of education from that race. He was a tad slow, took a lot of dirt, made a steady run, didn't close fast, but steadily came back since then. He had a good 5-8 speed with New York traffic, and he's going into the race in good shape. Hopefully you can see the horse that we think he is. We think he's a very, very talented horse, and fingers crossed on Saturday he can display that.
Oh, that's so he was breezing with New York traffic.
Yeah, his last breeze was with New York traffic coming into this race. I mean,
nice.
He more than held his own. He's a talented horse. I mean, he looks the part. If you see him in person, I mean, I think he's a very good horse, and he has to go out there and do it this Saturday, and hopefully he does.
Nice. So that's the 5th race at Gulfstream. And then at Oaklawn in the 9th race, a maiden special on their nice card as well. You have a horse called Lazaretto. It's been working over at Oaklawn for a while. I've been with you down in Florida until it looks like mid-January or so, and then headed over to Oaklawn. First-time starter by Hardspun. What are your thoughts on Saturday for Lazaretto at Oaklawn?
Yeah, he's a well-bred colt. We took him up to Oakland. he got a little delayed because of the weather over there, but he's plenty fit. He hasn't shown anything to get overly excited about. His works have been more steady than anything, so we kind of want to see how he runs before we make a judgment on him.
As I say, that's the 9th at Oaklawn. I always like to get some thoughts on some of those first or second time starters, and a couple on Saturday for Saffie Joseph, but the highlight of the day will be Drain the Clock. Saffie, always fun to talk to you, and certainly going to root for you this afternoon with Drain the Clock. As I say, a very talented runner, and puts an interesting little piece to the puzzle in that Fountain of Youth on Saturday afternoon. As always, really appreciate your taking the time, and we'll talk again.
Thanks a lot, Seth. Take care.
Appreciate it. Saffie Joseph. Saturday afternoon, Drain the Clock. A couple stakes runners on the undercard. A couple of interesting maiden runners as well. All coming up on Saturday afternoon.
Your favorite teams, your favorite food, daily drink specials, and wagering on live horse racing? Legends Field Sports Bar, 711 Central Avenue, Albany. Get your game on day or night with 75 flat-screen TVs, tournament-style pool tables, a private banquet room, and live horse racing. So if someone asks you, where's the best sports bar in the capital region? Tell them, Legends Field Sports Bar, inside the Clubhouse Race Book, 711 Central Avenue, Albany.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
Happen to be joined now by a friend, Ron Nicoletti from Gulfstream Park on a big Saturday at Gulfstream, highlighted by the Fountain of Youth. Ron, good morning.
Good morning, Seth. How you doing today?
Very good. Happy to have you on board to talk a little bit about Fountain of Youth Day and a big stakes card. Before we get into the races themselves, give us a little preview of what the weather is expected to look like on Saturday.
It's supposed to be beautiful. It's supposed to be in the low 80s with the sunny conditions fast and firm, so it looks like a really nice, we've been actually warming it up the last couple of days.
Oh man, that is gorgeous, and I want to go back a few days ago as well. How would you have liked to have been the I was going to say gentleman, but I'm not sure whether we know or not, gentleman or group or whatever, that went into the last race at Gulfstream with the favorite live for just about $750,000 in the Rainbow Six and pull it pool down and have the favorite. That was incredible to me. That just going into the race, you have to feel like $1 million.
Yeah, going in, and then you have Irad Ortiz Jr. in the saddle, it makes things even a little better. It's nice, 700,000 yards you go home with, and usually you sit there with a 40-to-1 shot praying.
Exactly.
So.
That's exactly what I said. You go into that last race, you're looking at a couple of long shots usually, but this guy goes into the last race with the chalky favorite.
Yeah, Coach and I were talking about that. Let's go into the last race with you have the favorite with Irad. What it seems to me, I don't think yesterday, but he had won the last race like 5 days in a row. So you just put him in the last race, it just seemed that way to me. Probably more like 3 or 4, but it seemed like every day last week he won the last race.
That was incredible to see that sequence and how it played out with a couple of live horses going into the last race for the whole pot, and one of them being the favorite. And then boom, 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 a few days later we're already people love that rainbow down at Gulfstream. The pool just is incredible now. It just generates so much action day in and day out.
Yeah, going into Friday's card, we were $400,000 jackpot going into Friday. I think we hit Saturday will be just as much.
Yeah, it's incredible. Really, as I say, folks who have gotten to really love that bet down at Gulfstream. All right, let's jump in and take a look at some of the action on Saturday, and let's kind of work our way back from the highlight, the Fountain of Youth. And, Greatest Honor is certainly going to attract attention. We'll have a replay of Greatest Honor's last race on the program as well. So I wanted to take a look at something else while we talk to you. And I know a horse that you had in your mix is one that I find really interesting. And again, you can find Ron's picks on the website every racing day, Gulfstream Park website, nice printable sheet. But going back to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, we're going to look at the stretch run. Number 7, Fire at Will be the winner. Comes back for the seasonal debut for Mike Maker on the dirt in the Fountain of Youth. I think he's really interesting. Kendrick Carmouche down from New York to ride, so he becomes an interesting player, but clearly Greatest Honor, the one that's going to take the action, the one to beat. Saffie Joseph, I just did an interview with him for our Saturday show, and he talked a little bit about Drain the Clock, who I also think is intriguing in the Fountain of Youth. What are your thoughts in the big feature today?
I was torn between the 3 horses you were talking about, but I just went with Greatest Honor. I've been watching this horse come in and get ready for this, following that typical show, very slow motion, just getting his horses ready, going for 3 in a row, followed that maiden victory. Was so impressive in the Holy Bull. But you're right about Fire and Will, so intriguing. I mean, he won the Whip Anticipation, which was a small field, taking off sloppy conditions up at Saratoga. But it's funny, just a side note, that I bet Fire at Will in the Breeders' Cup, and they kept the camera running. I was sitting on the stage, which we didn't want to, handicapping it, but I was watching the race, and they filmed me cheering it in home and put it on Twitter, and it was all over Twitter, me going like, screaming on the top of my lungs. So it so spot my heart for Fire at Will.
We should reiterate, at 30-1, I don't blame you.
Yeah, 30-1, yeah, it was great. It was a big score. I was glad. And to keep the camera, they were so sneaky to keep the camera rolling. They got permission from corporate to show it, so.
That's very good. And I saw you and Acacia speaking of that the other day. They have there's always a peppy tune leading into the pregame show. And in the middle of that, I don't know, like a week and a half or so ago, they cut to you and Acacia both doing a little dance to the peppy music, which I also found. It looked like a candid shot.
Yeah, we joke, Acacia and I joke about that one song. We don't know when it's in the sequence, when they're going to play it, and every time they play it, we're dancing, so apparently they stuck the camera on while we were dancing. That one gets me moving every time. I'm shaking and shaking my booty, as they say.
Very good. And speaking of the 31 and Fire at Will, and speaking of being able to get your selections on the website, I'll tip my cap to you, because over the past couple of weeks, your long shot play's been doing very well.
Yeah, I've been having a pretty good meeting. A couple of weeks ago, I had 10 winners out of
I saw that.
10 winners. It was just one of those, you go to those zones. Now I can't find anything. So we'll see if it can bounce back. But the World Cup's been running pretty well. So I always like that. It's always a fun part of the day.
No, I did see that, in fact, the Big 10 win day, because usually when I'm in during the afternoon handicapping show, the tracks I look at, I usually pull up their public handicappers and see how I'm doing against their public handicappers. That day, I thought I had a big day. I think I went 5 or 6 for the day, and I thought, but it was no 10. I was doing a check mark after every race for Ron Nicoletti. So, yeah, congratulations on that one as well. Let's take a look back at the Devona Dale, race 12 on the Saturday card. The Fountain of Youth for the 3-year-old boys leading into the Derby. This should have some Kentucky Oaks implications for the 3-year-old fillies, and it does look like it's going to go through VQuist here. We're going to look at her winning the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. She'll be the number 2 horse. This is the seasonal debut, however, so does have to be ready off of this November start that we're seeing. Milfui, if I'm pronouncing that right. I know it has a crazy pronunciation for Bill Mott. It's interesting. Curlin's Catch for Mark Cassie, I think, could be a player coming off the stakes win over at Tampa. What are your thoughts on the Devona Dale?
I've been waiting to see Vickers come back. I really liked that horse when she was going through a 2-year-old season to bounce back with that second day out of the offices. started here in the Frizette with a really impressive win. And talking to Butch Reed, the trainer, and the connections, the horse is doing fantastic. I mean, a lot of people might be singing this one in the Rainbow Six this afternoon. So I don't know what Big Wish. I like it. You know, I used Lily Fiore in second, who's making the first start for Bill Mott. Is just having a fantastic week. Johnny Velasquez of being the so, and then Crazy Beautiful, who was second to a really nice horse, as you know, Simply Ravishing in the Great One Out Sobriety. Cuts back, felt the fire behind Bequist last time out, but I think that one could bounce back. But that's one of the horses that I've been dying to see, and I think is the one to be.
Yeah, it's again, it's a really nice afternoon down at Gulfstream, where you get to see some champions returning and that kind of thing, and it's going to be a fun day. But we'll continue back on the undercard, because I mentioned a couple of moments ago, last couple of weeks, your long shot play has been doing well, and I pulled up the sheet for Saturday already, which is already available on the website, has been for a couple days. And the Canadian Turf on Saturday features your long shot play. We're going to take a look at the Sunshine Turf back on January 16th. It's going to be number 9 Venezuelan Hug getting it done that day. And off of that win, you have Venezuelan Hug as your long shot play on Saturday. Talk a little bit about your thoughts on the Canadian Turf.
Well, Venezuelan Hug is actually my best bet of the day. My long shot comes in race 13 and War Like Goddess, but Venezuelan Hug trying to make it 3-0 at the distance. Victories, as you mentioned, in Pursuing in the Sunshine Turf Preview and the Sunshine Turf here last time out for Danny Gargan. So 27% winning consecutive races to barn. Now, that's the one I like this afternoon. That's the one I'm toying with singling on my ticket.
Very good. So that's the best bet. Okay, so I had that mixed up. What was the long shot play? The long shot play's in the very one?
Yeah, the very one is War Like Goddess. Once again, talking about Bill Mott. This one makes her stakes debut at the mile at the 3:16. She began undefeated in the 2 races at Churchill, includes that victory in the 11th furlong allowance. So Bill Mott, Julian Leperoux atop this sort of English Channel. Just playing the hot hand in that. I think I'm going to get a little bit of a price on it. And I use Sister Hanan and Bacchanalia behind it, but I think a lot of money's going to go, which it always does, to Chad Brown's horses. And I think maybe get a little bit of a price here.
I like that. 10-1 on the morning line, 2 for 2 so far. War Like Goddess in the very one. Finally, let's go back and take a look at race number 3, which will kick off the stakes action on Saturday. It's the Here Comes the Bride for the 3-year-old fillies on the grass. Field of 8 scheduled in here. Spanish Love Affair for Mark Cassie taking the action on the morning line, but Con Lima likely to be the one that they're going to have to chase around for Todd Pletcher. What are your thoughts on the Here Comes the Bride?
Well, I'm just so interested in the 6-horse in there, Toby's Heart. It's making her sophomore debut at the mile in the 16th. And pair of impressive sprints last summer, which she followed her debut maiden score at Churchill, comes back with a dominating win in the Bolton Landing. That race, go back and look at it. 4 of the 6 horses that have come out of that race all won stakes races. So I'm going with the old key race angle with Toby's Heart on top of my ticket. Of course, Con Lima and Spanish Love Affair underneath them. But I see a race like that, I got to take a shot. I don't know what kind of price I'm going to get, but Toby's Heart just so intriguing to me. And that is going to Here Comes the Bride in race 3.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see. 7-2 on the morning line. Certainly Con Lima is going to take action. As I say, Spanish Love Affair is the morning line favorite. So what will we get with Toby's Heart? But I was at Saratoga that day, and that was one of those performances where after the race, people were like, wow. That's why I remember it. And so it'll be interesting to see seasonal debut, stretch out, start number 3 in the career for Brian Lynch. I'm kind of interested in Toby's Heart myself. Ron, as always, appreciate the visit and wish you and everybody down at Gulfstream good luck on Saturday. We continue to live vicariously through you. I mean, it is getting into March. It's going to start to warm up here, but it's been a lot of fun watching, and I like to hear that 80-degree weather down there. We'll enjoy it on Saturday, and as I say, appreciate the visit. We'll talk again.
Take care, Seth.
Appreciate it. Ron Nicoletti from Gulfstream Park. A big afternoon coming up on Saturday.
finding us? It's actually quite simple. Whether online or on your TV, it's never been easier to watch and wager on championship horse racing with Capital OTB. Simply log on to CapitalOTBBet.com. There you can watch our morning shows, live stream races, and wager on our state-of-the-art wagering platform. You can also watch from the comfort of your home on Spectrum Cable Channel 1250 or Fios Channel 467. And win more with Capital OTB.
Birdstorm is it outside the front. They're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstorm. Birdstorm surges past. Birdstorm wins the Belmont Stakes.
Always happy for a little Derby conversation, a little Derby Trail conversation at this time of year with Jeremy Plonk from horseplayernow.com, Countdown to the Crown, and much, much more. Jeremy, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Seth. This is like, final exam time. We're almost to March, and we've got to get going on this Triple Crown Trail. We've had weather delays and horses who haven't run yet in 2021, but that's all about to change on Saturday, and some big, big names in action this week.
Yeah, very much so. Before we get into some of the races specifically, I always like to give you an opportunity to talk horseplayernow.com and countdowntothecrown.com and just update folks on what they can look for. I always tout swing by every Friday and get the Countdown to the Crown package. That's always a great way to review and preview, as it were, but update us on what's available.
Yes, season 16 of Countdown to the Crown. You can get all the information. Go to countdowntothecrown.com. We're at Horse Player Now on the Countdown tab, and we preview all the major maiden and allowance races through January and February. This is the last week we do that because once March 1st hits, we focus only on the stakes horses on Countdown, and in-depth looks at all the stakes races, picks, analysis, a new top 20 released every week on Countdown. And certainly, for me, it's basically my personal notebook. Everything I take down during the course of the week and looking at a race before and then after in the postscript, basically put it all down on paper. And it's an easy downloadable format for you each week, a PDF file you can look at on your phone, on your desktop, print it out either way, and follow this trail all the way through the Belmont Stakes. That's what we do, and we're like 1.5 million words I think we've written in the series right now. So 16 years ago it's true.
Ah, nice. I like that. And I had pulled up this week's, which again, they come out on Friday, and I will note, and maybe we'll hit on some other notes a little bit later on, but this one clicks in because you mentioned some horses haven't started yet this year and whatnot, but there's one that did start, and I was in doing the handicapping program the day Prevalence won the debut, and automatically people said, oh, there is a Derby horse, but you noted in this week's Countdown to the Crown, he's missed some works, and it's kind of, it's a tough situation for a horse like that if you don't hit those calendar spots.
Yeah, exactly. Look, he's got to, the points are the points, you kind of get in if you have 30 or so, and that's not that big of a deal, because if you can't run second or third in one of the big final preps, you probably don't deserve to be there. But it's about the timing. Everything has to go right, and other than last year, you can't beat the calendar in the Triple Crown. I mean, that's the thing. They moved the race last year, and that changed the dynamic of things. But when it's the first Saturday in May, you get one shot in your entire life to be good on that day. You're already 3 on the first Saturday in May once in your entire life, and everything has to go right. No straw unturned, and nothing in your path along the way. And for Prevalence, he needs 2 more good races, to get to that Kentucky Derby, I think. And now it might be reduced to a one-shot deal to try to get in. Then you'd be going in off of just 2 starts. That is difficult. And missing the race this week, there was an allowance race Friday at Gulfstream in which he could have run in, or in the Fountain of Youth. Either spot would have set him up nicely on the calendar, for that final prep, maybe for the Derby, maybe up to the Wood, potentially the Bluegrass, something like that. Or the Arkansas Derby, if you needed another week, is still on the calendar for you. But now things started to really tighten, and as talented as that horse is, Prevalence is by far, and I mean miles the best of any maiden winner I've seen so far this year. He is up against it. The clock is not going to work out well for him. Maybe you start to think of something like the Preakness, and that's what I mentioned in this week's Countdown, 3 things you won't read anywhere else, is that, if the Derby's not going to be on the plate, the Preakness is going to be a much easier spot. It gives you more time, and he can still get 2 races between now and the Preakness, and maybe peak there on the 3rd Saturday in May. But he's owned by Godolphin. Godolphin's got several horses, including Essential Quality and some others in the mix. And necessity is the mother of invention in this trail. We know that. If you need a horse for the Derby, you'll find one. And so if prevalence isn't needed by Godolphin and there are other horses for that operation to run on the 1st Saturday in May, then they have the luxury of not pressing him. But if they need to press him because the other horses fall short, he's talented enough maybe to get him there. But the clock's not working in his favor at all.
Yeah, it's a great point. Also, when you get an outfit like that has some other options in the barn, it's different than particularly the small. If this was a smaller outfit where we don't even know when we'll get to the Derby at all, much less this year, they may press. But with prevalence, but it was, as I said, I was sitting in here that afternoon, and as soon as that horse came onto the finish line, everybody was kind of, this is one, but we'll see where they go for. We'll go from here. All right, let's take a look at Fountain of Youth on Saturday afternoon, which clearly will have some potential Derby players. I've already interviewed Saffie Joseph, talk a little bit about Drain the Clock, and he was clearly, until we go to 2 turns, we don't know, but we think we have a talented horse. So this time of year, this happens. You have a horse that may just be a sprinter, but you've got to try. Essentially, he's 4 for 4. You draw a line through the one race where he lost the jockey. So Drain the Clock is interesting. Fire at Will is interesting. More turf, perhaps, but he's an interesting player. But we're going to pull up and look at the replay of Greatest Honor winning the Holy Bull. Greatest Honor will be the number 7 horse here. It was a nice win for the Shug trainee, nice 89 buyer. Buyer figures progressing through each of the 5 starts so far. So he's going to take the attention, clearly. But what are your thoughts in the Fountain of Youth on Saturday afternoon?
Well, it's the proven commodity, right? I mean, we know what we have with Greatest Honor now, and he's run 3 really big, brisk, late-pace figures, and while he might not be as fast as some of the others early, he's faster than anyone in this crop. I think pretty decidedly faster with the late-pace figures. So as we get to 1 1/8 miles and 1 1/4 miles, Greatest Honor is going to be absolutely near the head of this class. Does he win on Saturday on a track that probably doesn't favor him? He's already bucked the system twice, Seth. He's won in 1 16 miles closing from the clouds twice during this Gulfstream meet to break his maiden and then to win the Holy Bull. That's not easy to do. This is an inside speed game, right? They use the 16-pole finish line, and it's a very short run to the first turn on that track configuration going 1 16 miles. So this race is usually all about inside speed going 1 16 miles at Gulfstream. He's bucked that twice, which is really impressive. Can he do it a 3rd time, and what will be the shortest price of the 3 attempts that he's going to do it? That's what you have to decide as a gambler, and that's a tough ask as a gambler to take 8 to 5 or less, and he may be less than 8 to 5. It'll be interesting to see. I have seen a lot of public handicappers, myself included, already on the record taking Drain the Clock. 5 to 1 in the morning line. If the public sentiment follows what the public handicappers are doing, you're probably looking at a shorter price on Drain the Clock. And then will that price affect what we see on Greatest Honor? Will he rise a bit? Or will Drain the Clock take the money from everybody else? And will it just be kind of a 2-horse race in the betting? If Drain the Clock takes a lot of money, I kind of think he takes it from Fire at Will. And if you like Fire at Will, you might get a little bit more price than you're expecting. So it's going to be very interesting to follow the tote board. And you got to let the tote be your guide in this race because Greatest Honor is the best horse in this race. I'm convinced of that. There's no doubt in my mind. But the race sets up nicely for Drain the Clock. The configuration of the track sets up nicely for him. And if he's 5 to 1 like the morning line suggests and Greatest Honor is 8 to 5 or so, then the value bet in the right play is to take Drain the Clock from the rail. But if everybody gets cute like maybe I'm trying to do here and tries to beat Greatest Honor and the prices drift up where they're almost even, then the best horse is still Greatest Honor, and he's the one to beat in here. He could lose this race and still be a top 5 Kentucky Derby contender if he runs a good second. No question in my mind. He's going to get better in 1 1/8 miles or 1 1/4 miles. Drain the Clock could win this race and still not be a top 15 Kentucky Derby contender. He just might have the right situation on the right day, the right track configuration. Everything sets up for him beautifully. There's not a lot of other speed in this race. If Prime Factor and Irado Ortiz don't go for the lead, and go with Drain the Clock, he's really got a loose and lonely lead in here. So again, This race may not tell us everything towards the Triple Crown, but it is going to give us a horse for the Derby with 50 qualifying points. The base could become a win and you're in. But again, Drain the Clock could win and not be a major Derby contender, and Greatest Honor could lose and still be a top 5 contender. So we're going to see what happens at the end of this one. It should be fun to see. Look, remember this about the Fountain of Youth. The last 2 years, the hot horses coming in, Dennis's Moment and Hidden Scroll. They both ran atrocious races. I mean, they bombed as bad as you can bomb as favorites. So weird things have happened in this race before. We'll see what happens. And sometimes on the Gulfstream Trail, we've seen some local horses from smaller time connections, blowing up the total at 40, 50, 70 to 1 on the second, third, fourth spots in your superfectas here in the Fountain of Youth in the Florida Derby. So don't sleep on some of those local horses that have been hanging around for barns at Gulfstream West or at Gulfstream Park proper that aren't from the big Broadway barns per se, but they've had a sense of getting in these exotics in the 3-year-old preps at Gulfstream in recent years. Maybe one of those can blow up the bottom of your ticket.
Yeah, you're right about Drain the Clock. As you were talking, I think you nailed it. Drain the Clock could win, and it'll be interesting to see those Derby top 10 lists the next week. Because, the mile and 16th at Gulfstream may just play into a sprinter stretching out. A sprinter gets the opportunity to go 2 turns. It's like Monmouth in the summertime. Some of the sprinters can go well on that track. So he would still have to maybe get a mile and 8th A and do it away from Gulfstream B before a lot of people really were willing to jump on the bandwagon, you would think. But he's an interesting play, or an interesting contender on Saturday. Let's go over to Oaklawn and the Southwest Grade 3 event. As I mentioned earlier, canceled a couple times, essentially, in that it was scheduled for 2 weeks ago, and Oaklawn had the cold weather and canceled. And then pretty early that next week, they canceled the following weekend. So they jumped all the stakes races here. You mentioned, you have to hit the calendar marks as you go along this Derby trail. Brad Cox seems pretty unconcerned. We've had him on the show over the past couple of weeks, and seems kind of unconcerned, which is a little bit understandable in that he wasn't based at Oaklawn, so it didn't affect the training of Essential Quality. He was still able to train right along down at the fairgrounds, but it does move him a couple of weeks into his first start of the year, almost into the beginning of May, right at the very end of February. So that to me is a little bit interesting. It's going to be certainly intriguing to see what he does on Saturday, and we're going to pull up and watch while we talk the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Essential Quality gets it done here. The number 5 horse over Hot Rod Charlie. This sealed the deal for him as becoming the 2-year-old champion. I thought Jackie's Warrior might be interesting in here. Maybe try to steal it on the front end in the first start of the 3-year-old season. Spielberg comes in for Bob Baffert from the West Coast, and obviously you always have to pay attention when he comes to Arkansas. Your thoughts in the Southwest?
Well, the key to what you're talking about with the timing and with Essential Quality was just what you had shown a moment ago, which was that video. Where was it from? Oaklawn, or should I say Keeneland? I misspoke. It was from Keeneland. And so the goal for Essential Quality to me is to get back to Keeneland. He's going to run into Bluegrass, right? I mean, you just know just the way the timing of things work out, and the fact that he had success there in the Breeders' Futurity, he had success there in the Juvenile, it gets you to Kentucky. So his timing was always about how do I get to the Bluegrass, and the Bluegrass has some space to it, right? If you're still at Oaklawn, you can't make the Southwest and the Rebel now because of the delays. That's where the timing would be thrown off. The local horses at Oaklawn that wanted to take Southwest, Rebel, Arkansas Derby, now their timing is screwed up, and that's an issue, I think, for those horses. But for Brad Cox, to me, it was always a 2-prep campaign, and it was always going to end in the Bluegrass Stake. Now, if they need more time for whatever reason, they have the Arkansas Derby, which is, held that weekend, at the end, at the 3-week mark, the week after the Bluegrass. So you would still have some time. But his timing is still spot on to make the Bluegrass now, no matter that this race was changed by a week or two. So I think the Southwest still plays into the hands of Essential Quality. He was the best 2-year-old last year. I really liked him. He looked sharp and green in his debut. He only ran about 50 yards in his first start, and I went, wow. This horse had no clue what was going on. He was very green, and then he just exploded like the last 50 yards of that 6-furlong sprint at Churchill. I loved him in the Breeders' Futurity. I loved him in the Breeders' Cup, and he delivered. And he is the best 2-year-old that we had from last year, without a doubt. Is he the best 3-year-old? We don't know. And one disappointing thing, and I'm going to pat ourselves on the back a little bit with my friends at XBTV. The workout videos that we get to see in California and Florida through XBTV is one of the great free services we've seen in racing in years. Put you in the set of the morning scene, and you see how these horses are training and developing. We've seen Greatest Honors last couple of works. We've seen Spielberg works these horses around the country that have been on the East Coast, on the West Coast. I don't know in the world the central quality of Jackie's on at Fairgrounds. We haven't seen any video of it. I would love to have it in the future, but we're going a little bit blind, and we got to fly blind and look at the workout tab and the spacing. Have they worked every 6, 7, 8 days as they should? Are the works progressing? What would the pattern look like when they worked before their last race? Does it look similar to this one when they were successful? These are the kind of things we have to do in absence of actually seeing these horses in the flesh for the last 4 months. I mean, it's been 4 months since the Breeders' Cup Juvenile for Jackie's Warrior and Essential Quality. Let's see what they've got. I'm really excited to see it, but, we didn't see them in November, December, January. We're at the end of February now, so it's essentially been 4 months away, and they come out of the garage in a showdown. It should be an awesome. Stylistically, I agree with you. Jackie's Warrior looks like potentially low in speed in here. Good post. I mean, it's a small field, a field of 7. But a good post and post 4, they can kind of see what they want to do with Rosario. Rosario rides the stakes races at Oaklawn exceptionally. He had a great record there. Remember, he moved his tack there last year and stayed during the pandemic. He really dominated in the stakes races last year. Rosario, well, he's going to put Jackie's Warrior in the front. They're going to play Catch Me If You Can. I think Essential Quality is still going to run him down, but I think it's going to be a hard-fought race to do so. The good thing here is at least with the Southwest, you get the full stretch run at Oaklawn. Those mile races that end at the 16th pole would really favor Jackie's Warrior. With the full length of the stretch, I think it's him, but I'm basing that off a 2-year-old form. Races 4 months ago. This is a very, very difficult firm bet on because, one, it's not going to offer a lot of value, and 2, we haven't seen these horses in a while. Spielberg, we know the most about him. Not only have we seen him run this year, we've seen him work in the morning at XBTV. I think he's a decent horse. He's probably the 6th, 7th, 8th best 3-year-old in California. If he can run a big race here, that tells me the Californians are outstanding because he is not at the top of the crop in Southern California. So if Spielberg can come east, he does have the advantage, right? He's had some races, and the locals will have missed training time. Spielberg hasn't had that issue in Southern California. So he does come in with some advantage built in, but I don't think he's that great of a horse. He's not a typical Baffert who comes in from Santa Anita to Oaklawn. If Spielberg runs well in this race, the Californians are the ones to beat. Let's see how the measuring stick shakes out.
Yeah, that's interesting, and it kind of leads me into my next topic here because Spielberg comes out of a 4th place finish in the Bob Lewis behind Medina Spirit, and I pulled up your top 20 from Countdown to the Crown. Essential Quality, you have number 1, Greatest Honor number 2, and then Medina Spirit, Mandaloon, and Life is Good. I really like Mandaloon off the win a couple weeks ago, so I'm glad to see you have him as high as you do. But I found it interesting. You have Medina Spirit number 3, Life is Good number 5. You put Medina Spirit as your top Baffert horse.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I do a podcast with Jeff Siegel, and Jeff Siegel, one of the deans of Southern California handicapping, one of those people that I really respect. And I always say, when you handicap a handicapper, right? I'm trying to figure you out, you're trying to figure me out. When someone is intimately involved in a circuit or an area, and they are very high or not high on a horse, that's, when it's against the grain, that's when I want to listen. Jeff is fairly convinced that Life is Good is not a classic distance horse. He actually thinks he's going to be an outstanding sprinter. And he watches this horse very closely every single day. And Life is Good, we'll see how far he'll go. But in the mile sham, Medina Spirit was getting to him. And if Life is Good isn't a 1 1/8 and a 1 1/4 horse, Medina Spirit certainly does look like that. And while Life is Good is the more brilliant horse and the more turn of foot and fast and elite, and is probably going to pull bigger figures, the fighter, the scrapper, the grinder that Medina Spirit is, kind of is a Baffert throwback to the real quiet Silver Charm days when Baffert had horses that just didn't run holes in the wind like Bodemeister and Justify and American Pharaoh. Once upon a time, Baffert won big races like this. It's been a while, but Medina kind of reminds exactly that kind. He looks more like a 1.125 and a 1.25 horse to me than Life is Good. And again, on Jeff's talk and recommendation, and as we discuss these horses, he's kind of convinced me that Life is Good is the one to take a little bit of a pause on and make him prove it to me. So that's why I have him down, Life is Good is at 5, right? I mean, it's not like I'm totally dismissing him and sloughing him off the trail, but I do think Medina Spirit is the best distance horse for Baffert. He hasn't set the table for where he's going to run him next, which is curious to me, He kind of, said, okay, this horse is headed here, this horse is headed there. We'll see on Medina Spirit. So, I don't know, maybe he just kind of thinks like he's a Swiss Army knife and you can plug him in anywhere. Because, again, he's not, dependent on something. He's not overly brilliant, needs a particular kind of track or situation or setup. Maybe he feels like that he can kind of just pour him where he needs and he'll fill the cracks. So we'll see where Medina Spirit ends up next, but I think he is Baffert's best chance this year. And I don't think Baffert is overly loaded this year. This doesn't look like one of Bob's vintage crops. But look, you look around the country, who it is, right? If Greatest Honor comes and blows him out by 5 again like he did, then we know he's that kind of horse. And if Essential Quality comes back as good at 3 as he did at 2, we know he's that kind of horse. But by 6 o'clock Saturday night, neither one of those two things may happen. And all of a sudden we're looking around going, what the hell do we make of this crop? I mean, we're going to be into the 1st of March and have no leaders in the division.
Well, talk a little bit about, because I do really like Mandaloun. I like Mandaloun coming into the last start because I gave him a pass on the LeCompte, the first try around 2 turns. And I was handicapping that morning, and I pulled up the chart from the Kentucky Jockey Club of Tiz the Law. And I said the same number of starts for the first time around 2 turns. Tiz the Law runs 3rd. Same number of starts. Mandaloun runs 3rd. I'm going to kind of give him a pass the way I gave Tiz the Law a little bit of a pass. I looked at it as some experience and some learning. And so Mandaloun, I was happy with the result the other day. And to me, he looks like, I think he's a live player.
Oh, I definitely do. And like I said, by 6 o'clock Saturday night, he may be the number 1 horse, At no worse, he's 3 or 4, depending on what happens, this week. And I agree. I think he's right there. The fairground distance have already stretched out to a 1.125, so he's already answered that call, which a lot of the horses haven't. He's run at Churchill Downs. You always have to be worried. The track at Churchill in the fall is not the same as the spring. It's a lot loose, and they don't put as much water on it in the fall because of the overnight temperature drops. Derby week, it's going to be tight. They're going to water the crap out of it, and I think it's going to be fast. It's not always the same at Churchill in the spring as it is in the fall, but it doesn't hurt that would be a home game for him. He'll have back in his home stall at Churchill that he used to. So Mandaloun has some built-in advantages, I think, and the fact that he's already going a 1.125, the fact that we know that he likes the environment there at Churchill and probably will like the track as well. There's a lot to like about him. I agree with you that there's probably, barring just a disastrous race for him in the Louisiana Derby, there's no reason to think he's not one of the top 4 or 5 choices going into the first Saturday of May. He looks good, and look, his trainer, Brad Cox, everything he's doing is turning up roses lately, except winning the roses, and that's not far off, right? I mean, we can probably look, in the next 5 years and figure that Brad Cox is going to have a Kentucky Derby on his name if his career trajectory continues the way that it has been going, because he's just doing everything under the sun. He's winning with everything, and he's got Essential Quality already. Mandaloun. I mean, he can have the 1 and 2 top contenders by the end of this weekend.
Yeah, certainly. Mandaloun, to me, as I say, very intriguing this season on the Derby trail. And another horse that I found intriguing, and I looked at your list and I thought, boy, not on there. And then I saw you have him down on the brink, just missing your top 20. But I'm guessing you weren't as impressed. And I'm not saying this would be top of my list or anything, but I think I was more impressed with the Sam Davis than you were, perhaps. I like Candyman Rocket, and I'll tell you what, I took a little 94-1 on Nova Rags in the future pool, because I thought that was another one first time around 2 turns, and ran an okay second in the Sam Davis. So the Mott 1-2 in the Sam Davis, so I thought it was impressive enough to me that I thought they're both interesting players going forward, Candyman Rocket and Nova Rags.
Yeah, I mean, when you get big prices like that, that's what the futures are all about. And I would never say don't take 90-1 on a Bill Mott horse with a good pedigree like that. And, take your shot, right? I mean, come swimming player. That's what you want to see at that point when you're getting that kind of price. The Sam Davis traditionally is a race that doesn't reproduce its form when we get to the Tampa Bay Derby. historically has not. And then the Tampa Bay Derby horses usually run pretty well at Keeneland. So if Candyman Rocket is going to be a player, I think we're going to find out maybe by the Bluegrass. I think that timing would really work out well for him. We know the Candy Rides love that main track at Keeneland. So I'm kind of like sitting back, taking a wait and see. I didn't like the way that race came home in the Sam F. Davis. I don't think the fourth quarter was very good. So how far do they project out past the mile and the 16? That's kind of the main question there. But this is the horse I think that's cut out for the Bluegrass and Candyman Rocket. And if he can keep moving forward and run a good race at Tampa next, and then maybe again in the Bluegrass, I think he could be a serious contender there. I'd be disappointed if he's not in the Bluegrass, though. I think that's a good spot for any of these Candy Rides and a horse from Tampa. We've always seen at Keeneland in the spring, even back in the Polytrack era. The Tampa horses come there and run really well in the spring meet in the stakes ranks, especially these 3-year-olds in the Bluegrass stakes. The Tampa horses have had a really good run of history there over the last decade plus. So I hope to see Candyman Rocket at Keeneland in the spring.
Yeah, I thought they were both kind of interesting, and so I'm going to be interested to see where they go next, what they do next. But next up, Fountain of Youth and Southwest. We will get some answers on Saturday. We'll look forward to updates on Countdown to the Crown next Friday with a little bit of, as I say, the review, because every week there's some review and some preview as well for the 3-year-olds along the Derby Trail. And you do a great job, Jeremy. Always appreciate your taking the time to come on with us, and we'll talk again as the Derby Trail progresses.
My pleasure. Always great to be with you, and you guys do a great job. Keep sending it in out there, people. We need to get this Derby Trail heated up.
That's what it's all about. Jeremy Plonk, horseplayernow.com, and Countdown to the Crown.
Horses racing, people betting. It's been going on since before the Empire. And the fastest horse is still the one that wins. Where there's gambling, there's cheating. That hasn't changed either. What has changed are the tools used to combat doping and cheaters. Today, professional horse racing operates under an aggressive anti-doping program, testing labs on par with the Olympics, and standards tougher than human sport. For 85 years, the Association of Racing Commissioners International has fought for safe horses in honest sport. ARCI standards form the basis for the rules of racing. Today, they call for a new expanded program to protect all horses, young and old. To join with them or learn more, visit arci.com.
Welcome to Albany County, an incredible destination to live, work, and play, with easy connections to more than a dozen cities from our vibrant modern airport. It's a short trip downtown to a hive of culture and amusement, from world-class shows at the newly renovated Times Union Center to reliving the past at the New York State Museum. From outdoor recreation to shopping to nightlife, Albany County has something for everyone. We'll see you soon.
Thanks to Jeremy Plonk for taking the time. Thanks also to Ron Nicoletti a little earlier. Of course, Saffie Joseph, trainer of Drain the Clock. Going to be fun and interesting to see what that one can do in the Fountain of Youth versus Greatest Honor. It's a really nice day of stakes action. I'll be back in a few hours with OTB Live for a Saturday afternoon, and we'll be taking a look at all of that stakes action during the afternoon. Gulfstream Park, Oaklawn, and beyond. So make sure you're tuned in for that right here on Capital OTB TV. Want to thank our friends at Gulfstream for their sponsorship. Gulfstream Park sponsoring some of the promos and events here at Capital OTB during their championship season. We appreciate their support. Don't forget, there is a handicapping contest this afternoon here at the Clubhouse Racebook. It's the Play the Board handicapping contest. Come on down to the Racebook this afternoon, play the races, and play the board. The handicapping contest this afternoon at the Racebook. Racebook also tomorrow has the prize wheel spin promotion. Come on down, put your name in the hat. If you get selected during the afternoon, you spin the prize wheel. There are vouchers available, merchandise, always a lot of fun. Prize Wheel Sunday here at the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. All right, I am going to wrap it up on, but again, a big day I'm looking forward to. I hope you are as well. Really great stakes action, nice undercard as well at Gulfstream. The same scenario over at Oak Lawn, and we're going to make a little noise on the Derby Trail, you would have to think, with the Fountain of Youth in the Southwest as well. So plenty to digest and talk about over the next week and beyond coming out of the stakes action this afternoon. More importantly, hopefully we're all talking about cashing some tickets on those stakes races. And as I say, I'll be here later this afternoon taking a closer look before each of those races, but hopefully this morning we gave you some ideas as far as handicapping this afternoon. So we'll wrap it up for this edition of Racing Across America. And again, we'll invite you to stay tuned later this afternoon. OTB Live, right around lunchtime, will kick in, so we'll see you then.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off-Track Betting.
Contest. 46-1 for a strong half mile, less than 3 furlongs to run. Halcyon Digest leads by 2.5. Long Beach Kid, Golovkin second and third, up to the outside, breaking alone. Jahaz at the rail. Uncle Fun still held up at the back. Zayas tries to get him in high gear and work to the outside as they complete 3/4 in 1:10-1. They're at the top of the stretch. Halcyon Digest turns for home on top by 2. Long Beach